Many gamers love multiplayer and online experiences, but sometimes the most unforgettable adventures come from single-player games that quietly fly under the radar. Today I'm showing you 10 absolute gems that you probably missed, and trust me, some of these are better than the big AAA titles everyone keeps talking about. Alright, starting strong with Alpha Protocol. This is Obsidian's spy RPG from 2010, and honestly, it's one of the most ambitious games I've ever played that nobody seems to remember. You play as Michael Thornton, a secret agent, and the whole game is basically Mass Effect, but with espionage instead of space exploration. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, the gameplay is rough around the edges. The shooting feels clunky, the stealth mechanics are janky, and the animations are stiff as a board. But the thing that makes this game special is that none of that matters, because the story and choice system are absolutely incredible in ways most games never achieve. Every single conversation you have changes something down the line. You can choose to be professional, aggressive, or sarcastic in dialogue, and NPCs will actually remember exactly how you treated them throughout the entire game. I had moments where characters I thought were solid allies turned on me because of something I said 10 hours earlier in a conversation I barely remembered. The game has one of the best dialogue timer systems ever implemented in an RPG. You can't pause and think about your response, you have to answer quickly as you would in a real conversation, and it makes everything feel so tense and authentic. There are so many branching paths that no two playthroughs feel remotely the same. It's buggy, and the combat isn't great, but if you love deep RPGs with actual meaningful choices that matter, this is essential. You can grab it cheaply on PC. Binary Domain is a third-person shooter from the Yakuza team, and it's absolutely wild that nobody played this when it came out. It was released in 2012, right when the market was completely flooded with cover-based shooters, so it just got buried under everything else. The shooting mechanics feel great, like really satisfying and weighty. Robots blow apart piece by piece as you shoot them, and you can target specific parts, like shooting off their legs and watching them desperately crawl toward you. It's visceral and genuinely fun. But what makes this game truly special is the squad trust system that changes everything. Your teammates react to literally everything you do in combat and conversation. If you accidentally shoot them in a firefight, they get mad at you and call you out. If you make bad tactical calls, they lose faith in your leadership. There are even voice command options where you can literally talk to your squad through a microphone, though I never used it because I felt ridiculous yelling at my TV. The story gets genuinely emotional and thought-provoking too. The boss fights are creative and challenging without feeling cheap. My only real complaint is that the romantic subplot feels super forced and awkward. If you love games like Gears of War, but want something with actual heart, play this. Alice Madness Returns is a dark, twisted sequel to American McGee's Alice, and it's absolutely stunning in every visual aspect. The main character Alice escapes into her version of Wonderland, but this isn't the cute Disney version you grew up with. This is a nightmarish, gothic, completely corrupted world, full of horrifying monsters and psychological horror elements. The art direction in this game is legitimately insane and unlike anything else. Every single level looks like a Tim Burton fever dream with incredible attention to detail in the environmental design. The combat system isn't deep, but it's responsive and fun. You've got weapons like the Vorpal Blade for quick attacks, a pepper grinder that works like a machine gun, and a hobby horse that's basically a giant hammer for heavy damage. It's weird and creative, and it works perfectly for the tone. The platforming is solid too, with creative puzzles that actually make you think instead of just jumping from platform to platform mindlessly. What I love most about this game is how it explores mental health and trauma in a genuinely mature way. It's not preachy or heavy-handed, it's symbolic and deeply emotional. Alice's journey through this twisted wonderland mirrors her real-world psychological struggles, and by the end, you genuinely care about her recovery and healing. The game is a bit too long, maybe an hour or two more than it needs to be, and some sections in the middle drag slightly, but overall, it's a beautiful, haunting experience that deserved way more recognition. You can play it on PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox. If you're into dark fantasy and psychological storytelling, don't skip this. Dark Sector is a 2008 third-person shooter that everyone completely forgot about, and that's honestly a shame because it's actually really cool and innovative. You play as Hayden Tenno, a covert operative who gets infected with a mysterious technocyte virus that gives him a supernatural bladed weapon called the Glaive. It's basically a razor-sharp boomerang that slices enemies in half, and it's exactly as awesome as it sounds in action. The Glaive is absolutely the star of the entire show here. You can throw it at enemies, control its flight path in slow motion, charge it with different elements like fire, electricity, and even ice, and use it creatively to solve environmental puzzles throughout the levels. Cutting through entire groups of enemies with one perfectly aimed throw never gets old. The gunplay is decent for the time period. Nothing groundbreaking, but completely functional and satisfying enough. What makes Dark Sector interesting beyond the gameplay is the oppressive atmosphere. It's set in the fictional Eastern European country of Losria, and everything feels cold, bleak, and hostile in the best way possible. The story is pretty straightforward and doesn't try to be overly complex, but it keeps you engaged from start to finish. There are some really creative boss fights too, where you absolutely have to use the Glaive in very specific ways instead of just shooting. The game isn't perfect by any means. It's pretty linear with not much exploration. The enemy AI is fairly basic, and it's relatively short at around 6 or 7 hours, but it's a tight, focused experience that doesn't waste your time with filler. Fun fact, this game was actually the early prototype concept for Warframe, and you can even see the name Tenno carried over into that universe. Call of Juarez Gunslinger is hands down one of the best arcade shooters ever made, and barely anyone talks about it, which is criminal. It came out in 2013 as a budget title, and people just completely slept on it because of that. The whole game is narrated by Silas in real time, and the levels actually change dynamically based on how he remembers things happening. Sometimes he'll correct himself mid-story because he misremembered a detail, and the environment will literally shift and transform around you as you play. An enemy, he said, suddenly disappears and spawns somewhere else because he got confused. It's such a clever narrative mechanic that I haven't seen done better anywhere else. The shooting mechanics are incredibly fast, fluid, and ridiculously fun to master. You've got revolvers, rifles, shotguns, dynamite, and a slow-motion dueling system that feels absolutely incredible when you pull it off perfectly. There are skill trees and perks that let you customize your playstyle completely, and the game heavily rewards accuracy and chaining kills together for score multipliers. The whole thing is brilliantly designed around replaying levels to beat your high score and climb leaderboards, so it has tons of replay value built in. The story is surprisingly great too. You encounter real historical Wild West figures like Billy the Kid, Jesse James, and Butch Cassidy, and the writing is sharp with a good sense of humor throughout. It's only about 5 or 6 hours long for one playthrough, but it's absolutely packed with content and never feels repetitive or boring. For the budget price, this is an absolute steal. If you've come this far in the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel. It's a huge motivation for me to keep creating more amazing and high-quality content just like this. Your support helps me keep going and brings fresh ideas to life. So subscribing is not just a click, it's encouragement for more awesome videos. Thank you for being here and for supporting the channel. Judgment is a brilliant spin-off from the Yakuza series, but instead of playing as a tough gangster, you're a disgraced defense attorney turned private detective named Takayuki Yagami navigating Tokyo's criminal underworld. This game is absolutely phenomenal in almost every way. It takes everything that makes Yakuza great, the incredibly detailed open world, the engaging side content, and the satisfying combat system, and adds detective investigation mechanics on top of it all. The main story is a gripping legal thriller about a twisted serial killer, corrupt police officers, and a massive conspiracy that goes deeper than you expect. I was completely hooked from start to finish and couldn't put it down. The characters are exceptionally well written with real depth, the voice acting is top tier quality, and the plot twists genuinely kept me guessing throughout. Combat follows your standard Yakuza brawler style that fans know and love, but Yagami has 2 distinct fighting styles that you can switch between instantly. One style is fast and flashy with quick combos, the other is brutal and powerful with heavy hits. Boss fights are incredibly intense and satisfying to overcome. The side content is absolutely massive and could easily take dozens of hours. There are friendships to build with locals, tons of mini-games like darts and poker, dating mechanics with multiple characters, and countless side cases to solve as a detective. I honestly spent as much time doing random activities around Komorocho as I did on the main story missions. The only real downside is that the game's initial release was limited, but it is now available on all major modern platforms like Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox. Black Mesa is a completely fan-made remake of the legendary original Half-Life, and it's so incredibly good that Valve itself officially endorsed it and put it on Steam. The passionate development team took the classic 1998 game and rebuilt it completely from the ground up in the Source engine with gorgeous modern graphics, significantly improved AI behavior, better optimized level design, and tons of quality of life updates, all while staying absolutely faithful to the original vision and feel. If you never played Half-Life before, or you tried it years ago and felt like it was just too dated and clunky, this is your perfect chance to experience it properly. The game holds up incredibly well even by today's standards. The gunplay is tight and responsive, the pacing is excellently balanced, and the atmosphere is consistently tense and immersive throughout the entire experience. The story is relatively simple but extremely effective, and the environmental storytelling is absolutely phenomenal at every turn. Every single area feels genuinely lived in and believable as a real research facility. What really impressed me most was how much genuine care and love went into every aspect of this project. The developers didn't just lazily upscale textures and call it done, they completely reimagined entire sections to make them more engaging and fun to play. The zine levels, which literally everyone hated in the original game, are totally redesigned from scratch and actually enjoyable now. It took the dedicated team over a full decade to finish this massive project, and the quality absolutely shows in every detail. This is a true passion project made by devoted fans who genuinely love Half-Life. As Dusk Falls is an interactive narrative-driven game that came out in 2022, it's one of the most emotionally powerful and affecting games I've played in years. It tells the story of two completely different families whose lives violently collide during a robbery gone horribly wrong, and the narrative spans an entire 30 years, showing the long-term consequences. The game is presented in a unique motion graphic novel style. Instead of traditional 3D character models moving around, you get this absolutely beautiful hand-painted art style with carefully animated stills that transition smoothly, and it works perfectly for the serious tone. You constantly make difficult choices that affect both families in different ways, and the consequences ripple through the entire multi-decade story in unexpected ways. Some decisions seem incredibly small and insignificant at the time, others are obviously massive and life-changing, and the game deliberately doesn't tell you which is which until later. I made choices early on that seemed totally minor, and then watched in shock as they completely destroyed important relationships or miraculously saved lives many hours later. The writing quality is absolutely incredible throughout. These genuinely feel like real, flawed people dealing with heavy themes like trauma, regret, guilt, and redemption in realistic ways. There's no clear-cut good guy or bad guy here, just deeply flawed humans making impossibly hard decisions under extreme pressure and living with the outcomes. The voice acting performances are subtle yet powerful, and the original soundtrack is hauntingly beautiful and perfectly complements every scene. One of the coolest technical features is the companion app functionality. You can play cooperatively with friends or family members, and everyone votes on story decisions using their phones simultaneously. It brilliantly turns the game into a shared experience. Jak 3 is the epic final game in the original beloved Jak and Daxter trilogy, and it's genuinely wild how many people completely missed this one back in the day. By the time it finally came out in 2004, everyone in the gaming world was already moving on to the exciting next generation of consoles, so it unfortunately got overshadowed and forgotten. This game is absolutely huge in scope and content. You've got all the core tight platforming mechanics that made Jak and Daxter great to begin with, but now there's also extensive vehicle combat in the vast desert wasteland, tons of new powerful weapons to unlock, and a morph system where Jak can transform into Dark Jak or Light Jak with completely different abilities and powers to use strategically. The variety in gameplay is absolutely insane and keeps things fresh. One mission you're racing hover vehicles through the futuristic city at high speeds, the next mission you're piloting a giant mech suit fighting huge enemies, and then suddenly you're solving complex environmental puzzles in mysterious ancient ruins. The game never stops throwing exciting new ideas and mechanics at you to master. The overall tone is noticeably darker and more serious than the lighthearted first game, but it feels more balanced than the sometimes overly edgy Jak 2. There's genuine humor, intense action sequences, and surprisingly emotional story moments that hit really hard if you're properly invested in these characters and their journey. Jak and Daxter's friendship is the emotional heart of the entire series, and this final game does it complete justice and wraps it up perfectly. The difficulty level is appropriately challenging but still feels fair and never cheap. The world feels truly alive with tons of NPCs walking around engaging in side missions to complete and secrets hidden everywhere to discover. Honestly, this entire trilogy is one of the absolute best platformer series ever made in gaming history. Mad Max came out in 2015, the exact same year as The Witcher 3, Metal Gear Solid 5, and Fallout 4 were all released, so it had absolutely zero chance of getting any mainstream attention or coverage. And that's a genuine shame because this game is an absolute blast to play. It's an open-world action game set in the brutal post-apocalyptic wasteland, and the main gameplay focus is intense vehicular combat and car customization. You constantly upgrade your iconic car, and you drive around the dangerous desert taking down enemy convoys, raiding fortified camps, and just surviving the incredibly harsh environment. The car combat system is genuinely the best I've ever experienced in any game period. Ramming full speed into enemies, firing harpoons to violently rip off their armor plating, and detonating explosive javelins mid-chase feels incredibly satisfying and visceral. Every single upgrade you add to your car makes a noticeable real difference in performance. On foot, the hand-to-hand combat system is very similar to the Batman Arkham games with a familiar flow. It's relatively simple mechanically, but extremely brutal in execution, with heavy-hitting animations and visceral finishing moves. Max isn't a superhero with special powers, he's just a tough guy trying to survive another day, so every fight feels properly grounded and desperate. The open-world environment is absolutely gorgeous in a bleak, post-apocalyptic way that nails the aesthetic. Massive sandstorms roll in dynamically and dramatically change the environment's visibility. The sky shifts from bright burning orange to dark blood red, and every location you visit feels genuinely hostile and dangerous. The main story is pretty straightforward and nothing groundbreaking, but it fits the setting absolutely perfectly. Max is a man of very few words, and the game respects that character trait. The side content does get somewhat repetitive, like clearing camps and collecting scrap for upgrades. If you like car combat, open world games, or just the Mad Max universe, play this game. And there you have it, 10 incredible single-player games that you probably never played. Seriously, if even one of these caught your attention, go check it out. You won't regret it. Let me know in the comments which game you're going to try first, or if there's a hidden gem I missed that you think deserves a spot on this list. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more game recommendations. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.